Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 444th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. It has been 144 episodes since I have done this, I think. Number 300, I did a book review of Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. Great sales guy. Read his book around 2011, and it just made an impact. I was fortunate enough to interview him on 142, and then I reviewed his book on 300. Episode 298, I reviewed Traction by Gino Wickman. I had one of his licensees, I guess that's what they're called, and that's what kind of piqued my interest as well in doing the book. This one that I'm doing is, the book's, I don't know, let me pull it up here. I want to say it's from 2005, but it's called Deep Survival. 2003. And I'm kicking myself. I've had it for a while. It took me a while to read it. And took me twice to really finish it and internalize it. And so we're going to go through this because now is a good time with this coronavirus. But the reality is it's always good to be a survivor, to know what it takes to really survive. This opens up with some language, really one word, but in one spot, and it's the word. So if you've got little ones listening, if you don't like the F word, you've been warned. Maybe fast forward a minute or two, but it's worth reading, and it's worth hearing, as it is. In the middle of Kylie's night of horror, Adams got on top of Meg, who was near death, covered with sores and horribly infected wounds. "Hey, lady," he said, "I think it's about time you and me had sex." When she started weeping, Adam screamed, fuck you. I'm tired of playing games. I'm going back to the 7-Eleven to get some cigarettes." Then he, too, slipped over the side. Soon, they could actually feel the sharks eating Adams beneath the dinghy. "The bow lifted up, then dropped back down," Kylie reported. "The dinghy spun around. I was paralyzed with terror." Years later, Kylie told me, "That is the only time in my life I felt like I was just walking down that fine line of sanity. Here's Mark. He's overboard. The sharks are eating him. Meg's dying. It's in the middle of the night. And it's the first night that the stars are out. It was just very haunting." Noticing the stars, the beauty of the sky, was a significant sign of strength. For although Kylie walked the line, she did not slip over it, as Lippeth and Adams had done. Instead, she continued to struggle, to consolidate her inner strength, to adapt and survive. A crucial moment for all survivors comes when they become convinced that they will survive. Often it occurs after a spiritual experience of the beauty of the world. "When I was out there and people started to die," Kylie told me, "I knew that I wasn't going to die. It was just a matter of figuring out how." So that's from Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez. Deep Survival: Who Lives, Who Dies, and Why. This book was brought to my attention a long time ago. And like I said, when I hear something interesting, I typically just buy it. And then I get to it when I can. I've got a big bookshelf of things I will get to, I need to get to. This one I do wish I had read earlier, but better late than never. I have highlighted so much of this book, I could literally go on forever. I'm going to do my best to consolidate it, pull out the excerpts, pique your interest. Recommend you get the book. But the reason I say it's important now as we go through this coronavirus, this is different than the 2008 financial collapse. It's different from 9/11. Okay, it's different from the dot-com implosion. It's different from the S&L crisis in the 80s. It's different from the oil lines, in the 70s. Because this, I think, this coronavirus and our reaction to it is man-made. The the virus itself seems to be made in a lab. I'm not saying it was released on purpose, but it seems to be because, scientists, nations are always testing things. So I get it. Was it sloppy, and how it got released? I don't know. But our reaction to it, I've been tracking some of the trackers, and the experts are so horribly incorrect. I literally stopped tracking them. It's amazing. It's amazing what these experts, so-called experts, have done. It's amazing what governors and mayors and county health commissioners, such as Dr. Cameron Kaiser of Riverside County, who I called out publicly for the snitch app. Bill de Blasio is making a snitch app in New York City. Fortunately, people are shutting it down by sending dick pics and other things, which I find awesome, to tell you the truth. But I say this, that's why I say it's different. It's that the overreaction, the trading of our security, because we're afraid, right? We're giving up our freedoms for the semblance of safety and security. And some people have died. My neighbor has died from this. So I get it. But our reactions are man-made. There's a mayor in Connecticut partnering with a drone company to spy on us, to detect remotely if you have a fever, if you are coughing. That's why I say this time it's different. The impact is going to be felt for a long time. And you better know how to survive. I've made some Facebook videos, and my profile's public if you want to follow along. But just this past weekend, I went on a 43-minute rant on the foundation of our country, how banks work, lending, how jobs, just kind of all over the place, because nothing is really that cut and dry. You need to understand the ramifications of and the implications of actions. Nothing happens in a vacuum. We shut down our borders. We shut down our economy. It's not a zero-sum game. So you need to understand how to survive, how to be tough. I used to complain about our education at the Air Force Academy. I'd say we were so well-rounded in our education that we were pointless. But I'm realizing the benefit of that now, to at least be curious, to be aware, to be cognizant of different things, how international relations and finance and economics and war overlap and affect all of us, affect other nations, and how those impacts, those effects may not be felt for decades, maybe even generations. People can harbor a grudge for a long time. So you need to understand what happens. But, this book, that was towards the end of the book, and I'll get into Kylie's story. But the author, Lauren Gonzalez, he opens with a story of his father being shot down in World War II, and how that unfolds literally is not answered until the very end. And I'm not going to tell you, but it is a fantastic story. But he gets into so many different stories of those that survived, those that did not, from snowmobile accidents, avalanches, mountain climbing, boating, a couple of stories of boating. Just really whitewater rafting. So a bunch of interesting things. But he grew up in Houston, where I grew up, at least junior high and high school, Houston Medical Center. So he grew up around science. He grew up being around his dad and hearing the stories, seeing the effects of that accident, of war, on his father. But he says here, gradually I developed the idea that to survive, you must first be annealed in the fires of peril. So many of us have it so easy. And, there's the old adage that good times make for soft men make for hard times make for good men, strong men make for good times. So it goes around and around. So these good times, strong men, good strong men, keep the wolves at bay, and it lets people get fat, dumb, and happy. And those good times make us weak. So to stay strong, to stay vigilant in good times, takes discipline. You're literally walking uphill. But it's the nature of the universe. It's called entropy, the tendency of everything to tend towards disorder, to eventually go to nothing, to go to being still, until an equal or greater force acts upon it. That's why a house, if you don't keep it up, it dilapidates, it wears down. Cars, if you don't maintain it, they wear out and they go away. Your mind, your body, if you don't work on it, they wear out and they go away. Okay? It takes discipline. He says, I found otherwise rational people doing inexplicable things to get themselves killed against all advice, against all reason. It's interesting how he gets into this on how we make decisions. And I've always known that we are emotional beings and we justify with logic. But he gets into a much deeper point in the book, and I'm just like, oh man, now I get it. Okay, he began to wonder if there wasn't some mysterious force hidden within us that produces such mad behavior. Most people find it hard to believe that reason doesn't control our actions. We believe in free will and rational behavior. The difficulty with those assumptions comes when we see rational people doing irrational things. Okay, he talks about, why do people survive Nazi prison camps? Why did Scott's crew perish in Antarctica while, against all odds, Shackleton's crew survived and even thrived? Well, one of those reasons was a marketing thing. Shackleton wrote a good ad, and he disqualified his people well. He made sure he got tough people, and he did not overpromise and underdeliver. He underpromised. He said, it's going to be tough. I talk about it in my No More Sales Duds program on how just you grill your salespeople, you grill your prospective salespeople. Because if they cave in an interview, they're going to cave on the job. So it starts in the beginning. The foundation of any endeavor is fundamental. It's key. Okay, so he studied brain functions. He studied the psychology of risk-taking and survival. And he admits, and he pulls you in because this applies to not just wilderness survival. They also apply to any stressful, demanding situation, such as getting through a divorce, losing a job, surviving illness, recovering from an injury, or running a business in a rapidly changing world. And I would say we have a rapidly changing world right now, wouldn't you agree? But even without global pandemics, the world is changing rapidly. The internet sees to that. So are you ready to cope? Okay. So experience, training, and modern equipment, he says, can actually betray you. He even tells a story of somebody just taking a wrong turn because of their GPS and getting into trouble. Some people dying because they just, even though they can see there's no road there, people take a right turn. We can put too much emphasis, too much reliance, too much confidence on technology. And it's a dichotomy of life. You get in the soup when you're flying a plane, you better know how to fly with your instruments, and you better trust them. But sometimes if you watch that movie with Sullenberger, the Miracle on Hudson or whatever, when the plane landed in the river, he he reaches up and he flips some switch, and I don't know what it was, but according to the rule book, according to the procedures, that was like the 15th thing to do. And he did it like first or second. And they're like, why did you do that? And he said, I don't know, just felt like the right thing to do. And it was. I mean, once they unpacked it, he was absolutely the right guy at the right time, in the right spot. He was an instructor pilot. And just his intuition told him. So that's why they say, you've got to learn all the rules and master them so you know how to break them and you know which ones to break. So there's something important, there's something foundational about being strong, being physically strong, being mentally strong. Not relying on your computer, on your iPhone, on Siri, on Alexa, looking something up the hard way, writing something out by hand, lifting weights, running, doing martial arts, being pushed to your limits and beyond, being pushed to failure, seeing how you respond. How do you bounce back? Does it break you or does it toughen your resolve? We need tough people right now. Okay? And he ends, in the prologue with, corny as it sounds, it's what's in your heart. That's what makes you a survivor. What is in your heart? And, I may or may not get to it, but he talks about, young people, 11 years old, 17 years old, no real training at all, but just wanting to live. And they live. Hiking through jungles, hiking down mountains. They wanted to live. What's in your heart? He has a quote, he opens each time, the farther one goes, the less one knows. The Tao Te Ching. He talks about Tao Te Ching a good bit. Maybe I'll review that one day. Soren Kierkegaard asks, how did I get into this, and how do I get out of it again, and how does it end? Things you should know. How accidents happen. Marcus Aurelius, he quotes, of each particular thing ask, what is it in itself, in its own construction? I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast or not a couple of weeks ago, but, I've been running, which is terrible. Now I'm starting to bike. Praise the Lord. I don't know why I was so determined to run, but, I wanted to do harder things, and I hate running. And so I'm not doing jiu-jitsu. I figured running is hard. It's something that can push me, something I don't like to do, something I need to get better at. But my wife's cousin is a fitness trainer, and he's our age. He's 50, 51. And but he says people over 40 shouldn't run. So I took that to heart last week and started biking. Got my mountain bike fixed, but I digress. But anyway, on one of my runs, I've been listening to this dude, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Why does it keep going away? What's his name? You'll have to look him up. Yuval Noah Harris, something like that. But anyway, he talks about how panicking is such a, I forget the exact word, but basically it's an arrogant response to a situation. And Marcus Aurelius kind of talks about this, just ask what is in it itself, in its own construction. In that book, he talks about being bewildered in a tough situation. Instead of panicking, because panicking, when you panic, you are presumptuous. You are assuming that you know exactly how things are going to turn out and that they're going to be bad. So, going all the way back to Marcus Aurelius, be bewildered. And like in that one section I just read there, and he talks about this over and over and over again with people that take the time to enjoy the view, even though they're in a life or death situation. This one young woman, he talked about that she went on a plane ride from the Bay Area, San Francisco, and with like the boss of her boyfriend, and that guy brought his girlfriend, and they crashed the mountain. And the pilot died. His girlfriend died. This young woman lives. She's wearing a mini skirt or a short skirt, no panties, high heels, and breaks her arm in the accident. She has the presence of mind to make a fire, to pull fuel from the plane, make a fire, and then the next day hike down. And I think it took her a couple of days to hike down with a broken arm. But in the middle of that, she sees this stream, and she goes for a skinny dip in this survival situation. So having the presence of mind of realizing the beauty that surrounds us, the miracle of life, but having that presence to literally, stop and smell the roses. It's a powerful thing. So understand that, appreciate it, and apply it in your life. So, this first chapter, he's on an aircraft carrier. And he's trying to figure out, how do people stay calm in this situation, especially landing at night? Why do some crack up? And he emphasizes, these pilots, they use skill, but they also use superior emotional control. The first lesson is to remain calm, not to panic, because emotions are called hot cognitions. This is known as being cool. He talks about the background, what is it, the etymology? I don't know, forget the word for the origin of a word. But, it goes back maybe to the 1800s, maybe it's in the 40s, jazz, maybe it's going back to, racism and African-Americans, musicians saying, hey, stay cool, don't get angry. But regardless, this hot cognition, he says only 10 to 20% of people can stay calm and think in the midst of a survival emergency. They are the ones who can perceive their situation clearly. They can plan and take correct action, all of which are key elements of survival. Confronted with the changing environment, they rapidly adapt. If you've been paying attention at all to the talking heads in business and entrepreneurship and what have you, pivot is the big word nowadays, which is basically adapting. You have to adapt right now in this COVID world. You're going to have to adapt for some time. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt may be the new normal. Neighbors ratting on each other. Maybe shortages for a while. Is oil going to come back? Are people going to keep working from home? Will there be less commuting? That means, my neighbor is in the auto repair business. He's telling me of companies that are struggling, going out of business because people aren't driving. There's no cars to fix. So that means auto parts stores are going to change. That means insurance rates are going to change. Will that mean self-driving cars are going to become more prevalent? Will that mean more people on bikes? Will people leave the big cities? If they can telecommute, then and we notice, right, the bulk of the sicknesses and the deaths are in these tight cities. Manhattan, is so densely populated. My little town of Murrieta, we have 5% of the density of Manhattan, but yet we're under the same rules. But I digress. But anyway, there's going to be some adaptations. Schools are already talking about being closed in the fall semester. So how can those restaurants, those pizza parlors, those bars, the pubs, the dry cleaners, the dentists, the chiropractors in those cities, how are they going to make it? So there's a shift coming, folks. Can you rapidly adapt? Your very survival could depend on it. So, and it's a cool story on this airplane, talking about righteous and masterful states of coolness. He talks about an accident, how a guy that's well-trained, with instruments blaring, with a guy on the phone, right, in his ear, saying, abort, abort, abort. He says the most mystifying thing was how he could have kept on coming toward the boat in the face of so much information telling him not to. Something powerful had blocked it all. and something had forced him to reach for the deck despite all the information he had that it was a bad idea. So he keeps digging into, where people ignore the obvious and do the inexplicable. None of us are exempt from this. None of us are vaccinated against this. We have to train in order to know and be able to stay calm in a tough situation. Like it says, 10 to 20%. You see it all the time when people freak out all around you. He gets into why there's that dark humor in military, in police, in any tough situation. That humor can break the ice. It can keep us from focusing on just how bad something might be. Right? Because the instructor, the commander that he's with, he says, you're sitting there sucking oxygen. So we're talking about these pilots coming in. You're sitting there. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back. So he said, it's like walking into a closet. You're going to go right off into a black hole. So right when they launch, you're sitting there sucking oxygen, and you better have a plan. Because if you don't, you're screwed. And then you're fucked. There's helicopters, 2 helicopters orbiting. They're orbiting because you may have an issue when you launch, you may have an issue when you land, and you got to eject. So eject at night in seas with an aircraft carrier, sailing away from you or towards you. So you're strapped to this big, basically rocket filled with highly combustible fuel, jet fuel, and bombs and bullets. It's you better be ready. Right? But if you focus on all that, you're going to freak out. You won't be able to do your job. So he says the first rule is face reality. Good survivors aren't immune to fear. They know what's happening, and it does scare the living shit out of them. But it's all a question of what you do next. So when he goes through this briefing, he talks about how they use catchphrases and different terminology for the things. But again, you don't want to freak them out, because what he says, what psychologists would call their high state of arousal, nothing too complex was going to get through anyway. So this dark humor gives him the ability to look death in the face and still come up with a wry smile. In a true survival situation, you are by definition looking death in the face. And if you can't find something droll and even something wondrous and inspiring in it, you are already in a world of hurt. So when you see people making comments and jokes and whatnot about COVID and whatever, it doesn't mean they're heartless. Maybe it means they're a survivor. Maybe it means you need to lighten up, Francis. Maybe you're holding on too tight. And maybe that's a bad thing for you and everyone around you. Okay? He quotes several times Al Siebert, a psychologist and author of The Survivor Personality. That survivors laugh at threats. Playing and laughing go together. Playing keeps the person in contact with what is happening around him. To deal with reality, you must first recognize it as such. All right? So he talks about how these pilots, they rarely talked earnestly about the risk this close to flight time. Right? It's go time. You can't be analyzing all this. You know the risk. You're either afraid of it or you're not. And if you're going to go do the job, just go do the job. You can't be worrying about a little bit of everything, right? Fear is good. Too much fear is not. Okay? So having that internal language, the slang, that dark humor, the insider joke, all right, it's a good thing. You can't be focusing too much on all the complications. It's like he says, taking off is optional, but landing is mandatory. So once you commit to taking off, you better have a plan to bring it back. In these deep, intense moments, they say your IQ rolls back to that of an ape. Is that happening to you? Are you saying stupid things? Are you doing stupid things? Are you thinking stupid things? if you're stressed out right now. And I would say if you don't have a plan, if this is all hitting you by surprise, and look, the lockdown and all it is, but I'm fortunate. I've worked from home since 2000, summer of 2000. I worked for myself since early 2007. I've been doing what I do in this pretty much exact role since 2008. I have residual income. I don't travel on purpose. This has impacted me because I can't do jiu-jitsu 6 times a week, and I can't go to church on Sundays. Other than that, we've homeschooled for 12 years. So it's not like I've planned for a lockdown, but it's, I've worked out from home as well. I've had home gyms. I've got kettlebells and bands. So it didn't hit us as hard. Okay. So, but if you don't have a plan, you're just going to get screwed. Okay. And when everything's coming at you at once, you need to recognize that and simplify things. If it's overwhelming you, take a time out. Look, when I get overwhelmed, and it happens still, several times these last 6 weeks, I'll go take a nap, maybe a 10-minute nap. I'll take a 3-hour nap. My wife's like, that's not a nap, that's a sleep. That's a second sleep. I'm like, it's a nap for me. So sometimes you need it. Okay. So recognize it. Recognize when you're at your best. Maybe it's 4:30 in the morning. Maybe it's, 10:30 at night. But optimize what you're doing, your schedules, so you can do your best work when you need to do it. Okay, but just understand if things aren't making sense, if you're flustered, whatever, it's normal, it's natural. You've got to learn to recognize it, and more importantly, as importantly, you've got to know how to respond so you can survive that situation. And responding is important. Call it an ape, like this guy does in the book with the landing on the aircraft carrier. Plato called it a horse. But Plato understood that emotions could trump reason, and that to succeed, we have to use the reins of reason on the horse of emotion. The intellect without the emotions is like the jockey without the horse. And so, he talks about, I skipped over it, but talks about, emotions and logic, and it's like being a jockey on a powerful horse. Inside of the chute, it's a dangerous place if that horse gets crazy. The jockey's got to be able to control it. But conversely, the best horse probably is not going to win the race if the jockey falls off. Yeah, he's lighter and whatever, but it's not focused. It's not driven the same. So you need to have both. Okay? Talking about flying, he says, when you walk across the ramp to your airplane, you lose half of your IQ. So that was his father talking to him, after the war. So how are you controlling your emotions? How are you tapping into your brains during stressful situations? And we're in one. And this whole COVID thing, it's not going to end for a while. He says in the book, fear puts me in my place. It gives me the humility to see things as they are. I get the same feeling before I go rock climbing or surfing, or before I snap on my snowboard and plunge off into a backcountry wilderness that could swallow me up and not spit me out again. And you think that's dramatic, but people all the time die in oceans. He tells a story of in Hawaii, 2 young girls, just parked their bike at a little strip mall and going to go for a nice little quick hike into the mountains of Hawaii, and are never seen again. And some of their rescuers are lost as well. He talks about how there's big cliffs, thousands of feet above the water, overgrown with vines and stuff. It looks like you're walking on solid ground, and you're not. People just vanish. We take so much for granted in this first world. Kind of digress a little bit, but I got a message this morning from a friend of mine. He is a pastor in the Middle East. That's all I'll say. He said I could share a story, just keep the specifics out. But he calls this a wealthy world reaction, how we are responding to this COVID-19, how we're shutting down, locking in, self-quarantining. And, don't you quarantine the sick? But he's talking about how, they don't have the luxury out there. And he decided to stay, him and his wife. Because out there, the poor, they rent a home or a flat week to week, not month to month, not year to year. If they don't pay in a week, they're gone. Then they're doubling and tripling up with families. Says that there'll be 20 people in one flat sharing a community bathroom down the hall with a bunch of other people with 20 people in a flat. You know, they are out there hustling every single day. And he says, check this out. He says that there is a noticeable quiet of dogs barking and a noticeable absence of cats. So here it is, April 23rd, and in big countries in the Middle East, in the poorer regions of those cities, people are eating their cats and dogs. So there's a lot of bad things going on all the time, all around the world. We just live in a very comfortable time in a very comfortable place, and we don't even realize it. And so that lack of knowledge, of wisdom, of insight leaves you vulnerable. That's why I thought it was a good time, to go through this book. Again, going back to so Yankovic is the commander on the flight deck. He says, "Be aware that you're not all there. You are in a profoundly altered state when it comes to perception, cognition, memory, and emotion." He was trying to keep them calm while letting them face reality. He'd seen people die. He knew the power of the horse, and these were his precious jet jockeys. My wife just told me this morning, a lady relayed a story in our local Albertsons. It's literally 1 mile away. I guess they've put arrows on the aisles so people don't cross one another. Maybe that cuts down contaminations. I don't know. But a lady was walking the wrong way. She didn't know. I wouldn't know. Fortunately, my wife does most of the shopping. But a lady yelled at her for going the wrong way and then pushed into her. And then the lady pushed back and she pushed back again and then walked away. But things are going to start getting interesting if they don't open up soon. And so you need to be aware, how do you respond in a physical altercation at the frickin' grocery store? Are you prepared? You know what they say, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. I mean, I'm a big guy. I still don't take it for granted. I've studied jiu-jitsu now for 3 years, and I realize how lucky I was to have a calm temperament, because there are people walking around that don't look like it. They can jack you up. Little guys, little skinny guys, even overweight guys with dad bods. We have a lot of guys with dad bods, black belts, that can destroy you. I always carry a nice pocket knife, and I've had my concealed carry permit for 8 years. So have I ever had to use it? Do I feel like I'm going to get mugged or assaulted when I walk around? Nope. I've also had car insurance for, 34 years now. I've only had to use it a couple times. I have home insurance. I don't expect to get in a wreck. Again, we take things for granted. We take our safety for granted. We take the rationality of others for granted. We overestimate our abilities to respond in a moment of crisis. And the reality is you will revert back to your level of training. For most of you, it's none. We do not rise up to our potential. Rarely does that happen. We fall back to the level of our training. So I just, I'm not saying this to be negative. I'm not saying it to scare you. I just want to wake you up so you take action. I did a long Facebook Live this past weekend and talking about the Federal Reserve and how we got into the situation and debt and where money is created, et cetera, et cetera. And I had a couple people message me back to back saying, I watched that. What do I do? I said, first of all, take care of yourself. Prepare yourself. Jordan Peterson, you may like him or love him or hate him. I like the guy. I like his message. But, one of his core messages is clean your room. In other words, control what you can control. So, and I've been literally cleaning my office. I straightened up yesterday. Cleaned the whiteboard last weekend so I could do I did actually a whiteboard chalk talk kind of session. I haven't done that before on Facebook. I'm cleaning up my to-dos. I had notes everywhere, multiple notebooks. I've been consolidating those, cleaning up my inbox. I want to get back to inbox 0. I was there a year and a half ago. I want to get back to it. So I'm literally cleaning my room, right? Cleaning the things I can control. I'm exercising every day. So in the last 5 weeks of this shutdown, I think I've missed 2 days maybe in 5.5 weeks of not exercising. So I'm controlling my fitness. I've done intermittent fasting now for a year. So my caloric intake is controlled. I'm not boozing. I drink some alcohol. I may have 1 beer a night. I may go 5 days with nothing. So, I'm controlling what goes into my body. You may have to control what goes in your mind insofar as social media. It's a lot of negative stuff out there. It keeps you amped up. Staring at the computer hurts, but reading stuff, being in this heightened state. People talk about adrenal overloads. You can't let this stuff get to you. You got to know when to say when. Put some limits on it. Okay? Control yourself. Prepare yourself. So, he references All Quiet on the Western Front a couple times, and I started rereading that book. And I say rereading. I think I read it in high school. As I read it now, I don't feel like I know any of it. So I'm probably just reading it. Certainly, I'm reading it for the first time as far as remembering things. But he talks about, again, he references the reactions of some of the main characters in there who, follow this animal instinct of hearing an incoming bomb and just hitting the deck just instinctively. That's the amygdala. It's like when you're on a trail and you see something curly or looking kind of curious, you will jump before you even consciously recognize it. It's your body, your brain literally saving you. And then you look like, oh, it's a stick. Oh, it's a piece of trash. It's a 5-foot section of garden hose that somebody just dumped on the trail. But your amygdala literally is going to save you. This emotional response, bam. It's a part of us, okay, and it's good. It's like he says, it's far quicker. It's much more sure, less fallible than consciousness. One cannot explain it. It's a second sight in us. So in his novel, he writes, emotion is an instinctive response aimed at self-preservation. It involves numerous bodily changes that are preparations for action. The nervous system fires more energetically. The blood changes its chemistry so that it can coagulate more rapidly. Muscle tone alters. Digestion stops. And various chemicals flood the body to put it in a state of high readiness for whatever needs to be done. All of that happens outside of conscious control. Reason is tentative, slow, and fallible, while emotion is sure, quick, and unhesitating. Now, I'm not saying don't develop your mind. Far from it, right? Develop your mind so you can stay cool, so you can stay calm. But recognize, too, are you running around in a constant emotional state? When you look at people's engagement on Facebook, Twitter, they're just mad. YouTube, they're just mad. And I'll sit there all day in that heightened state, not thinking, just reacting. It's going to wreck you. All right, so you need to understand this. And he goes back, he references the Greeks, he references Plato, Aristotle. Smart people have known about this for thousands of years. Thinking is a bodily function, as are emotions and feelings. They're all bodily functions. He references Antonio R. Damasio, points out in his best-selling book on the brain, Descartes' error. I think, therefore I am, has become I am, therefore I think. The brain is the only organ that has no clear function. I had to go back and read that. What? It makes you breathe, but it's not part of the respiratory system. It controls blood pressure and circulation, but it's not part of the circulatory system either. The concept of body has no meaning without the brain and its extensive network of projections that reach to nearly every cell. As an eminent neuroscientist, Damasio is as qualified as anyone to define the brain, and he calls it an organ of information and government. He put the word organ in quotes because it's not exactly an organ either. Very interesting, huh? So, how do you adapt to the world? He talks about the process continually reshapes the brain by making new connections. Are you pushing for new connections? Or are you staying in your lane? For the last 6 years, I've done this Tampa Bay Frogman swim, and every time it's tough for me. And the first time, I panicked. I kept going, but I lost my form. I just brute forced it. It took almost 45 minutes for me to get comfortable. The lead swimmers are finishing in an hour. I was finishing in an hour and a half, 2 hours, but I was finishing. It was weird. It was hard. Now I'm comfortable in the water. It's still hard, but I'm not anxious about it. Just get in and do it. Still I'm not fast, but I've built new connections. Jiu-jitsu, it was hard. I was sore. I was as sore as I've ever been in my entire life. I was sorer in more places for longer than I'd ever been in my whole life. It doesn't help that I started just shy of my 47th birthday and went 6 days a week when they say go 3. But still, those build new connections. Carrying a firearm, looking at scenarios, analyzing rooms, looking at people, thinking through things differently. It builds new connections. I write every single day. I make videos weekly, if not daily. It forces me to build new connections. I read different types of books, not just sales and business books, to make new connections. What are you doing to build your own connections to help you adapt to the world? And that's why I like what the Academy did for us. It made us so well-rounded, we're pointless. It's helped me in many ways through my life and even now. So you've got to be aware of what's going on, okay? Jockeys, like a jockey on the thoroughbred. The jockey is a reason, the horse is emotion. What are you doing to control both? He gets into, again, a lot of different stories. He's a great storyteller. He's bouncing around from his dad in World War II to landing planes on aircraft carriers, people climbing mountains. He talks about Neil Armstrong, Tiger Woods. How do you stay cool in these tough situations? In this one chapter here, this one paragraph, 44-year-old Peter Duffy died on June 16th, 1996, while rafting in the Hudson River. And his accident illustrates how important it is, not only to control emotions, but to develop the appropriate secondary emotions. He, Duffy, fell into the river, wrote Charlie Walbridge, who published his river safety report. Facing upstream, he attempted to stand, caught his right foot between 2 rocks and was pushed under. His life jacket was stripped off, and he was trapped under 3 feet of water. 3 feet of water. All right, that's not much. But foot entrapment rescues are very difficult. You might as well step in front of a speeding car as you get your foot caught in a fast-moving river. The victim was warned, but failed to follow instructions. Knowing was no match for emotion. They go on to say, fear is but one emotion. The instinct to reproduce is another. It initiates a remarkably similar set of visceral responses, though with striking differences involving the sex organs and glands. So again, your IQ rolls back to that of an ape. Get into the fear reaction, the amygdala. Gets into some nuances of epinephrine and adrenaline rushes. It calls them, technically the catecholamines or cholamines, norepinephrine, talking about, the jolt, the adrenal cortex, how it amps up fear among its other effects. How often are you scared? How often do you put yourself in difficult situations? How does it react your hormones? You're under stress right now. How are you handling it? I've already seen reports of suicides going up. There's a county in Tennessee, in a 48-hour period at the end of March, they had 8 suicides. I think they said they had 83 the entire previous years. They had almost 10% of their annual suicides in 2 days. So if you're squared away, that's fantastic. Be on the lookout for others. What are you doing? How are you helping others? Because he's talking about the body knows where safety is. And that's why when emotions take over logic, that's how this guy, when he opens the book, this guy flies a plane right into the back of the aircraft carrier. He lived, but his backseater died because he just wanted to get to safety, and safety was the aircraft carrier. He ignored all the signals. And this was a highly trained individual, right? You're not landing on an aircraft carrier at night on your first day on the job. So he had been through a year of pilot training, probably 6 months of learning the aircraft, then a ton of other training to take off on the aircraft carrier, and then even more training to land at night. So this was not just some, rookie. And he panicked. Okay? I want you to be prepared. Man. Talks about, the importance of self-control. 1910, 2 British explorers, Apsley Cherry Garrard and Robert Falcon Scott, set off for the South Pole. Scott died on that expedition, and praising his traveling companions, Cherry Garrard wrote that they displayed that quality which is perhaps the only one which may be said with certainty to make for success: self-control. We've seen a lot of jokes on this quarantine, and it's funny, but some of it's probably very true, where people are like, day 2 of the quarantine, I've eaten all my snacks for a month, now what do I do? You see people not exercising because it's different. People that are working from home now instead of going to an office, they're not getting work done, they're sleeping in, they're staying up too late, they're not controlling themselves. You need a routine. Routines are not confining or restrictive. Routines free your mind. If you had to think every single time, where's your toothbrush? Where's the toothpaste? Where's the towel? Where's the soap? Where's the shampoo? If every single time it was a scavenger hunt before you could do it, you'd literally never get out of the house. Routines free you up so you can use the limited cognitive ability that we all have to think about bigger, more important things. So you need these routines. You need this self-discipline to stick with them. Anybody that's great at anything, when you look back, it was their dedication to routine, to practicing the fundamentals over and over and over. Go look at Larry Bird's work ethic, Kobe Bryant's work ethic, LeBron James' work ethic. Go look at Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods. They putt the ball. Hit one wedge over and over and over and die. I mean, they know to the half yard the distances on their clubs. Okay, they're not practicing, standing on one foot, hitting it backwards through their legs, whatever. No, because they've mastered the basics, they're able to stand with one foot and hit the ball backwards when it's on a crazy lie or whatever. But it's the practicing the fundamentals. They say an amateur will do something. They'll practice it until they get it right. A professional will practice until they can't get it wrong. That's when you can stay calm and cool under pressure, when literally your life is on the line. Very few people are willing to go to that level with anything, really. That's why people are sheep. Most people need to be led. Most people lead lives of quiet desperation. Okay? This is your chance to be unique as we respond to this. Because look, again, I'm going to say it over and over and over again. Just because states open up the lockdowns doesn't mean this thing's over. Not all states are going to do it at the same time. My state of California, this may drive us to move away from the state. Been there 15 years. My wife's from here. Her whole family is here. But if they lock us down, continue closing schools, it's going to get bad. So, are you ready for the rebound? And by rebound, I should say the reemergence. There's going to be more fear. They're going to keep pushing it around. The CDC's already saying, the second wave could be worse than the current. These people, I think they are so full of crap. I think they just want to be in control. They want to be in charge. So what do you do when there's somebody trying to control you? How do you respond? Better get some self-control. Better clean your room. Better get in shape. Better get your finances in order. Better learn how the game is played. That's why, you see things like Harvard getting millions of dollars. You see Ruth's Chris Steakhouse getting $20 million. All these big companies, big entities get money while the little guys struggle. Now I just read an article. A lady has 2 spas. I think she's up in Washington State. But now the federal government is paying $600 a week for 4 months on top of the normal unemployment. So hourly workers are literally making more money being home. And for this lady to leverage these forgivable loans, she has to use the money for payroll. But her staff don't want to come back to work because they're making more money being at home. Talk about the law of unintended consequences. The government's too big. They just straddled us with more and more debt. There was like $250 billion and then $2.2 trillion. Now they just passed another $450 billion. We're pushing $3 trillion, 25 million unemployed in a matter of like 5 weeks. There's going to be more pain. So get ready. Get your finances in order. Learn how the game is played. Learn how these banks and mortgage companies and whatever, credit card companies, want to keep you in debt because they know morally you're a good person and you'll let them worry you to death. Learn how to negotiate. Okay? To deal with reality, you must first recognize it as such. And as Siebert and others have pointed out, play puts a person in touch with his environment, while laughter makes the feeling of being threatened manageable. The fact is, you have to deal with these things to the best of your ability. If you don't work with it, it'll get you. So, have some fun. Moods are contagious, even in dark times. I'm always the one cracking things up. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. Sometimes it's inappropriate, but 99% of the time, I'm the one you can count on to lighten the mood, keep things going, keep us going. So, play is important. I've had more fun in life these last 3 years, carving out 2 to 3 hours a day of jiu-jitsu. It's fun. It's hard, pisses me off. Every day I get beat on something, but I learn. I think if one of the good things that could come out of this COVID thing is people, spending more time with family. We've literally had more family meals during this time in 5 weeks than we've had in 5 years. Doesn't hurt that my oldest broke up with her boyfriend, so she's around more. But even that, she's present, and the girls are having fun together, and we're going on walks. They go on bike rides. They go jogging. They're doing yoga together, other exercises. They're baking. Doing puzzles, watching shows. So, we're not commuting back and forth to school, racing to soccer practice, racing to volleyball practice, racing to all these other things. So we're able to play a little more. So don't make time for play. Make time for work. My sales training courses, I show people my schedules, and, we've all allowed work to just take over. And we're busy. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for my wife. I'm doing it for my kids. No, you're not. You're doing it for you. You're doing it for society. You've been brainwashed by the propaganda and you've allowed it to take over. You think it's normal. You think it's what smart people do, what responsible people do, and it's all a lie. I schedule in my life first, and then work gets squeezed in around it. Oh, Wes, well, you have that luxury. You work for yourself, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I was doing this a long time ago. I learned a long time ago I don't have to answer my phone. Okay? And even if I did, I didn't have to go deep into a conversation right at that moment, because I get it. Sometimes, you're in business. Maybe you got to take the call. Real estate, that's a big one. The first person to respond usually gets the deal. But you're not always in a great spot to talk. So, answer the phone. Hey, it's Wes. Yeah, I'm calling about that property on 123 Main Street. Oh, yeah, that's a great property. Let me check if it's still available. Can you give me 1 minute? Oh, what's your name? John Smith. Is this the best number to reach you at? Yep. Okay, give me 1 second. Oh, let me check with my coordinator. I'm walking into a closing right now, or I've got to call a client back. I thought I was waiting on a call from my client. I thought you were them. Can I give you a call right back as soon as I get off the phone with them? Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Write their name down, write their number down. If nothing else, just give yourself a moment to put yourself together. Pull up the listing, see what's going on with it, see if there's any provisions or stipulations or, whatever, mitigating circumstances. Call them back in 5 minutes. Say, okay, hey, thanks for giving me a minute. So I've got this pulled up. So what questions can I answer? Okay, now you're calm. You got your notepad in front of you, your laptop open, whatever. So, but once I figured that out, man, my life got better. Once I learned I was in control of my time, I was in control of my destiny, things got a lot better. Because they talk about the driver of a car never gets car sick. That's why my wife drives almost everywhere. Certainly on long drives, she gets car sick. And one time we were heading up to, we're going up to Laughlin right after we got married. We took kind of a back road, and it was nighttime, and it was a little bit hilly, like swells, if you will, like waves, right? And she got queasy, so I let her drive. Same thing with flying. The co-pilot starts feeling a little airsick. Boom, they'll pass the controls over. As soon as they grab the controls, boom, the air sickness goes away because they're in control. It's that sense of control that gives you the confidence. So are you living your life in control? Or are you running around reacting? If you're reacting, it's not going to end up well for you or for anyone around you. Okay? And even if, you're the most squared away person, he talks about it in the book. I mean, very well-trained people that responded correctly, some of them still died. And some rookies with no skills got lucky and they lived. All right. But you know what? Stack the odds in your favor. You'll be better off. All right. So we're at an hour here, and I've only gotten through page 42 of the book. It's a 300 roughly page book. I'm not sure if you can find it. If you can, go get it. So many good stories in this thing. It was he is a great storyteller. Some of the things were gruesome. I opened up with a gruesome one back towards around page 213, I think. That was a young lady. They were delivering a yacht, and the captain was a drunk. His first mate was a drunk. The first mate's girlfriend, Meg. And that Kylie gal, she brought a friend as a coworker on, they were just delivering it from like Maine down to Florida. They got caught in a hurricane and they weren't ready. The first mate was an idiot. He opened up the life raft, didn't secure it to the boat, so it blew away in the storm. They were fortunate to get into a dinghy, but as they launched that, it tipped over. And in the middle of the storm, they realize as they're under this thing that they're sharks. So they freak out and get some energy and tip the thing over. And at least they get it right side up. But they're panicking. But as they were leaving the yacht, a bar or rope, something cut across that gal, Meg, cut across her legs, deep, deep wounds that eventually killed her. So, they weren't prepared, and but as he tells that story, you can just, when you read about, the first guy, so they panicked, the first two, they started drinking ocean water. I guess it was the salt, they say, starts messing with your brain. And the first guy said, "Yeah, I'm going to go to the parking lot, get the car. I'll meet y'all at the dock." And he just swam away, and they heard him scream in the dark. And the other guy just, "Yeah, I've had enough too. I'm going to the 7-Eleven for cigarettes." They felt him getting eaten. I mean, it's just, you think, "Oh, it's horrible, it's terrible." And it is horrible and terrible, but it happens. You got to toughen up. You need to realize what's going on in this world. You need to realize the role that we play and that you play in it. And by being tougher, by being stronger, you're going to be better. You're going to be an asset to society, to your family, to your community, to your company. So get tough. Okay? If you need some help getting tough, reach out. I've got the free group, theimplementors.com. Got the sales training group. I'm in the middle of a 3-day intensive I'm putting on right now. I'm going to be doing more of those, so be on the lookout for that. If you sign up for my blog post or email announcements, I'll send that out. I'm about to do a 3-day intensive for Infusionsoft users. After that, I'll probably do one for HubSpot users. Then I'll just go back to generic, if you will, sales training to help people. These aren't 5-week, 6-week, 12-week things. These are 3 intensive days over the course of about a week and a half, with a lot of support online. So, and I do private stuff, but just not as much because there's only one of me. I can't do private consulting for everybody. But if that's a fit for you, if you think it would benefit, you got more than a few people, you need help with sales, with marketing, with your CRM, copywriting, strategy, just go to the website, hit me up, and we can talk about it. Okay? We're going to get through this, but the tougher ones are going to get through it better. This is your time to zig while everyone zags. Buy when there's blood in the street, even if that blood is yours. Okay? So toughen up. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe. Share this episode. I'm going to be doing more book reviews. And they're going to be a little bit longer. They're going to at least be an hour like this. As I get more into the routine, I'll have more notes because I've underlined so much in this book. It's amazing. But I'm not going to read the book. I don't have the rights to read the book, and you need to go get the book anyway and go through it yourself. But the core principles remain. Get tough, get strong, get a discipline, get some routine in your life, and that'll help you go sell something.